again to the When We Talk podcast. This is Kenneth Bonner,
Reggie Smith,
Jackie Wells.
And today, this segment will be talking about sex in the confines of the marriage. On the last segment, we talked about sex before marriage and we dove into that, came up with some very interesting points. But right now, we're about to get into sex within the confines of the marriage. So pow, boom, here we go.
So one of the misconstrues is that, how people say that Christians in this whole big question about sex.
It has become like taboo to talk about sex in the church or sex within the Christian marriage. But I'm going to kick it off going from Hebrews 13:4 when it says, marriage is honorable among all and the bed is undefiled. But fornicators and adulterers God will judge. Another version says marriage is honorable in every respect. And in particular, sex within marriage is pure. I'm going to say this again. Sex within marriage is pure, but God will indeed punish fornicators and adulterers. So I'm going to kick off with the first question. Let's discuss or give the definition of what it means to be undefiled.
Okay. So undefiled by meaning is basically something that's pure, that's wholesome, and without blemish. So if we're thinking it from a context of a married couple, I believe that as long as it's pure, it's a conversation between you and your husband, and it's within the context of what you guys agree to. I don't think that there should be any limitations.
Okay, so you're basically saying sex is boundaries between a husband and a wife, whatever you all set as your boundaries or your limits or whatever your expectations are in the bedroom.
Correct.
Is considered purity.
I believe so.
I would have to agree with you. I don't even have a comment behind that.
I totally agree. I think as long as both partners consent to it and everyone is on the same page, that's between you and God and in the four walls of that bedroom or whatever you decide to partake in your activities at.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so from the aspect of defiled, let's talk about it being defiled.
I don't know how a marriage between a husband and a wife or sex between a husband and wife can be defiled. I guess when you look at things that are pretty much against your spouse's wills, against their will.
Okay, well let me just give you the definition of what I see as being defiled. To make fault, dirty, to pollute, to taint. So when you think about all of those words in the context of marriage, I know a lot of times that, men and women can think that some things are okay. And especially if we get off into the aspect of people in marriage that think pornography is okay to make marriage or to make their marriage sex life better. I don't think that, depending on what that is, it could be corruptible because you could be wanting to do some things with your spouse that the other spouse don't necessarily agree with. And then too, it's a lot of things out there too on the internet that you would want to bring into your bedroom. And again, it could be corruptible and it could be tainted based off of what you bring into the household. That might not be acceptable by the other person.
It goes back to those soul ties. If you try to bring those past experiences, that you had in the past into this current relationship, that could be undefiled too.
Yeah.
Or defiled. I think though that when you think of it from that way, going even further to where there are some people that want to bring a third person into the relationship, in the bedroom as well. Mm-hmm. That's defilement. But I don't agree with pornography in marriage because again, that's a whole nother level of soul ties that we talked about. Mm-hmm. Because even though you're just watching pornography, you're actually tying your soul to the acts of what those people are doing, mm-hmm. and then you're setting the expectation for your partner to meet those same things you're watching in the show, basically. Mm-hmm.
So let me ask this question so you said that bringing things from your past into the bedroom can be wrong. But what if you're bringing something from the past into your bedroom and both of you all agree upon it? So let me ask this question.
Clarify that.
So I'm asking because I want to know.
Because you're playing devil's advocate.
But I want to know what are those things.
But
what are you talking about?
But that's based on boundaries. So for instance, if you're bringing up things you used to do with a previous partner, and trying to bring it into this relationship to do it with your current partner, and your current partner is like, I'm not feeling that. I don't get down like that. Then from that perspective is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
Because I wouldn't want to bring anything from anything previous that I've been through with somebody else with my current husband. I just think that that's disrespectful on all kinds of levels, because it also takes you through a trance. I think, if you're trying to bring something in from your past to your current, it's not gonna mix well. You know what I'm just saying, flashbacks. So I don't think that would be appropriate. And really, since we are talking about sex, what is it that you could bring from your past that would be acceptable in your current marriage?
And that's the question I'm asking, because if you've had sex before marriage, you're bringing that into your marriage because you've already have done it. That's what I'm asking. So help me understand. So that's what I'm saying. So, if and I'm just throwing out a number, because I'm not saying me. I'm just gonna throw out a number. If I've had 16 partners before you, and now you're my 17th and final partner, I'm bringing my past experiences into this relationship. You know what I'm saying? Because I've already had sex already. You guys understand what I'm saying?
You've already had sex, but you're not bringing your
the whole experience.
The experience into your. I mean, everybody who's gotten married has had sex before, I'm sure.
Okay.
But I don't consider that as me bringing those encounters into my marriage.
So if you're basically trying to do things the same exact way that you did with another partner, does that make sense? Does that clarify?
Or maybe you can be a little bit more
or more descriptive. Reggie, go ahead and make your point. Go ahead and make your point.
How many more different ways can you be?
Okay, so
just say it.
Okay, so just give me some clarifications on when you say you're bringing your past, since you've had sex in your past and you're bringing it into your marriage. Give me what you're exactly meaning when you say that phrase.
So let me give you an example. Let's say that you got a partner that you used to, in your past relationship, you used to play with handcuffs, and you want to handcuff or tie your partner up. Then you come into this relationship and you try to tie your new partner up, and they're like, what's up with that? And you're like, well, where did you get this idea from? And you talking about, I've tried it before, I've experienced it before. Now you're trying to get this person to do it. Is that not pulling something from your past? It may not be as detailed, but what do you think? Is that not? I mean, you look at like, I don't know.
If that person agrees to that, is that wrong?
But what if they don't?
Okay, then if they don't, then now you guys are not in harmony. You guys are not. Both you guys are not consenting to that. So that's up. Okay.
Well, let me just say this then. I think that if you're not mentioning the things that you did in your past with other people, and if it's something that you want to do and explore with your current spouse, then that's the conversation that you have based on, okay, why don't we try some different things? Okay. I don't think that you should bring in, tying yourself to things that you've done in your past. And you know what, babe, we tried this, in my life, in my past life. I think it'll be great for us today. No, I think that you have to approach that conversation very different, because again, you don't know what your spouse might agree to or might not agree to. But again, you don't want to bring anything to negatively impact you in your current situation, because you might not end up with no sex if you start talking about somebody who you was with before.
I think that you have to have that conversation, because you also don't know, there could have been some things that transpired in your previous relationship that you're just not cool with anymore. You understand what I'm saying? So I think the conversation has to be discussed on various in-depth levels, even though it might be uncomfortable, but at least I would need to know these things, so therefore I'm not bringing this up, or we don't have to have a real topic, because it may have been something that may have happened in your past that kind of might jog your memory, that just wasn't pleasant, or you just didn't enjoy, and it created a very unhealthy atmosphere.
Okay, so I have another question. What about the infamous, oh, I got a headache?
Here you go. I feel like that's directed towards the women.
Not necessarily. I'm just asking. I'm just asking. So what about that? Is that factual, or is it sometimes?
Do you want me to take this?
You can go ahead, and I'm going to jump on your bandwagon.
I don't.
Let's be 100.
Okay. Okay. So I might have said it a couple times. I might have faked a headache every now and again, or a stomach flew, it just all depends on the atmosphere or what was happening at the time with me and my husband. I don't withhold sex from my husband, but I think that at times as women we are very emotional. And I'm just gonna put this out here. Men are physical creatures. Physical touch is like one of their main things that they look for in a marriage, and so we use that as kryptonite sometimes. We use that as a weapon against our spouse to say, you know what, he ticked me off today, he ain't getting none tonight. Or we come up with these excuses, but biblically, we're not supposed to withhold ourselves from our spouse. And so from that aspect of it, women who uses I have a headache or I'm not feeling it opens up the door for things to happen.
Well, I'm gonna say this. I don't have that issue with my wife. It don't matter if she could have a migraine and on her deathbed, it just don't. It don't work like that. So I haven't had to experience that my stomach hurt or whatever. Now, if she's in some very critical pain or something like that, that's a whole different issue. But But this one, she'll lay hands on her own self, get herself better, so we can make it happen.
Well, let me clarify. We don't have that problem in my household either.
Right.
However, I just think that in reality, sometimes as women, we do withhold.
And it needs to be talked about. So
I think in reality, as women,
so let me
men too. I don't think it's just women. I think my husband. Let me think about that. Well, no, he ain't ever. No.
So let me ask that question. So do you think men withhold as well?
I'm not withholding nothing unless I'm being honest. Unless I'm not reading the signs because whatever, or I'm dog tired and I'm just not picking it up. I'm not withholding nothing.
Now, y'all, I am going to go talk to your wives after this show.
And they're going to tell you the same thing. Now, sometimes I'm saying with Kenneth, sometimes I might be dog tired or I miss the signs. Because sometimes as women, you guys don't give the most direct signs. You guys play this little kitty cat thing and all that. And so we miss the sign. If I'm tired, I'm going to miss that every single time.
Yeah, I need you to say, come to the light, Caroline.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? But no, I don't say that I would purposely withhold.
So let me read that scripture that Jackie was talking about. So this is out of 1 Corinthians 7. Now I want to deal with the things you wrote about me. Some of you say it is good for a man not to sleep with a woman, but since sexual sin is happening, each man should sleep with his own wife, and each woman should sleep with her own husband. A husband should satisfy his wife's needs, and a wife should satisfy her husband's needs. The wife's body does not belong only to her. Should I read that again?
Yeah.
Okay. So the wife's body does not belong only to her. It also belongs to her husband. In the same way, the husband's body does not belong only to him. It also belongs to the wife. Do I need to read that again for the women? Okay. So it also belongs to her husband. In the same way, the husband's body does not belong only to him. It also belongs to the wife. You shouldn't stop giving yourselves to each other. You might possibly do this when you both agree to it. And you should only agree to it to give yourselves time to pray.
Enforce that time.
Yep. And then you should come together again in that way that Satan will not tempt you when you can't control yourself. So that's just that kind of ties into that scripture, that you were talking about, where people may play the headache or whatever the case and intentionally withhold from your partner, whether it be male or female. I don't think that like the scripture said, you should do it for a set time that you all agree upon, because temptation can come. I mean, we're all human, we're all flesh, and if you're not meeting needs, let's just be honest, people look to, whatever they can to meet those needs, and which is a sad thing that you often see that happen a lot in marriage.
Yeah, and too, I think also, as women and as women in marriage, we like to hear things from our husband that makes us look attractive, or that puts us in that mode of wanting to be needed by our spouses. Because a lot of times, when you think about the marriage being defiled, some men, can look at women outside of their marriage and wish their wife had the body or had the look that they would expect from somebody else, which can cause issues eventually in the marriage, which makes me feel, like I'm not wanted, like I'm not valued by my husband. So it could cause me to be shaky a little bit and not want to willingly give myself to him, even though I know that I'm not supposed to withhold anything from him. Too, I think that it's important that the man, he compliments his wife to make sure that she, that she feels like she's wanted and needed by him.
Right. And I think that sometimes when your spouse is not in the mood for whatever reason they may be, sometimes you got to respect those feelings. Because if you don't respect those feelings, then like you say, you can go in the doghouse and, I'm not giving you nothing.
I think that I get all that, and I do understand that, there should be some boundaries, and, you shouldn't take it personal if your spouse is, has an illness or something, or she just can't physically perform. But I also think that it is a very, very dangerous game to purposely withhold sex from your spouse.
Yes, I agree.
At any time, but especially now more than ever with social media being as prolific, and everyone is enamored into social media. There's so many things out there that can catch your attention. So basically, and I've gone through this, not in my marriage now, but when you purposely withhold for X amount of time, you basically are indirectly or directly opening up the door from that other end. You know what I'm saying? Because when you are, it's something about when you have sex with your spouse. You know what I'm saying? It releases and creates certain things. It creates the closeness. It creates that bond with you and your spouse. But just like with anything else in a relationship, even with a relationship with God, the more and more you distance yourself with God, you allow the enemy to step in and start to wreak havoc in your spiritual life. It's the same thing with your spouse, with your wife. If you continue to distance yourself from your spouse, then that's what the scripture was talking about that Kendall just talked about. Now you allow the enemy to come in and start to wreak havoc. Now, not only are you seeing things on social media, you start to have these unprecedented dreams that are coming out of nowhere. You start thinking things of thoughts, and you start to hear certain things, and it's creating these different things that's going on the inside of you. So I think for women that do that, even for men with your spouse, you are creating a very dangerous, you are on a thin line because it's so easy. Sex is so easy to get and obtain nowadays.
Right.
It doesn't take much. You don't have to actually leave your house to go get it like you had to do back in the day.
Right.
You could turn on your iPad or your computer and they're offering it to you.
Right.
So I think that's very, very dangerous. I want to go segue into this because Kenneth made this comment about what may not be happening. So here's my question, and I think it's a very serious question. What do you do when your mate is not performing or meeting the need in the bedroom? How do you navigate through that? What do you say? What do you do? Because this is a main issue, is because when they're not performing and we're not doing what we need to do, not stepping up, what happens is that you're going to look for someone to perform and meet those needs.
Well, okay. Well, for me, I think it's as simple as a conversation. You know what I'm saying? I think it's important, and even like, you're supposed to communicate all things in marriage. You have to communicate about sex as well. And me and my husband, we have a tune with each other. We have harmony. So I can sense, you should be able to sense when something is off in the bedroom with your spouse. But again, I think ultimately it goes back to making sure that communication is there, making sure you have the conversation, and just simply ask, okay, so what is it that I'm not doing? What is it, that you say that I'm not fulfilling from an aspect of me understanding what the expectation is in the bedroom with my spouse?
Well, you just stole my thought, but I'm going to try to go anyway. But I agree with you that you have to have that conversation. And I think that what people don't do is have the honest conversation to say, well, hey, I have some needs that's not getting met. And if you don't have that love language, that we talked about on the previous show, then you won't pick it up. If you're not connecting sexually, then you're not going to pick it up. If there's no intimacy, you're not going to pick it up. But I do believe that you honestly have to have a conversation and be honest. Tell them that specifically what it is. And if your partner comes to you with that conversation, you have to be honest with your partner and tell them what you need. And I think that sometimes we have it in our own head that we know exactly what our spouses need, so we just do what we think they need versus honestly asking them, what is it, like you said, that's not being met? What need is not being met? What do I need to do to fulfill that need?
I'm going to say this. I agree with from both points, but let's go a little bit deeper. When you have a spouse who, um, um, the physical aspect of them has changed. You know what I'm saying? How do you have that conversation when the spouse has become too heavy, or the spouse or she or he has picked up too much weight, and that has now changed the performance in the bedroom, or lack thereof in the bedroom?
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, when me and my husband first got married, I wasn't as big as I am now. But my husband is very gentle when it comes to having conversation with me. And not that my weight is an issue for us right now, but I think ultimately it comes to the point of making sure that you know how to handle your spouse with care.
Right.
It's a certain way that you have to have a conversation to say, I think you can have a delicate conversation with your spouse on what you feel should change with them, as long as they're comfortable with the change. So like, for instance, my husband and I, we started working out together because we both noticed that we picked up weight. And that it not only hinders us physically, but we also want to look good too. And I want to make sure that I stay attractive for my husband and vice versa. But I just think ultimately you just have to be gentle when you have that conversation, because what you don't want to do is tell your wife you fat, or you say something derogatory to your wife to make her feel like she's not able to give you what you need. And then that opens up a lot of other doors, like, okay, is he cheating on me? Is he going to step out of the marriage? So it can open up so many more things in the marriage if you're not gentle with how you have that conversation.
I agree. It's all about how you approach that conversation. But I also feel that in the beginning, if you don't create intimacy from the beginning of the relationship, if you don't create that bond that you and your wife have to be able to have honest conversation, then when it's time to have that hard talk, it's going to be more difficult for you to have that hard talk, and then offenses may come.
Yeah.
So you have to lay that foundation from the beginning and build up on that. And then too, like you said, it's about how you say what you need to say to your spouse. My wife is the same way. This workout thing. She won't even let me get to the point to where I'm gaining weight or eating wrong. If she catch me eating wrong, then it's a 5 a.m. workout, and I got to run. So it's just something that, like, instead of having that conversation and saying something evil or nitpicky, work out together. Don't criticize them. Just say, hey, you know what? I think I want to start getting workout. Hey, I think I want to change the way I'm eating. You want to join me? If your partner is that sensitive to where you can't have that conversation, then you got to try some alternative ideas or alternative routes to try to help them out in those areas.
So let me say this then. Women need to stop asking their husbands, am I fat? Okay, let's stop that right now, because if you want him to be honest, and then he becomes honest with you and tells you, yeah, baby, you are a little fat or whatever like that, then you guys go down this whole road of all this other kind of stuff.
Come on,
and then now it sets us up because you asked a honest question. We gave you an honest answer. So here's what happens. Now, because you've asked that question, you've opened up the door for that. Now, and you know how you all think, you got to start playing these little things in your mind. Now what happens is, later on down the line, now the dynamics in the bedroom begin to change. You understand what I'm saying? Because now, let's be honest, when you all were dating and in the precursors of the marriage or whatever like that, you did it with the lights on, anywhere, any place, anytime. Now all of a sudden he has agreed with you that you are, babe, getting a little fat. Now all of a sudden you run past the mirror, you put on a towel, you want the lights extra dark and everything else like that. Then stop asking that question, hiding. You're hiding yourself. Now the nature but what happens is, because the nature of what happens or was supposed to happen in the bedroom starts to change, and instead of you all looking at yourself, the first thing that you all say is that it's our fault. No, or you need to accept me for who I am. Sorry, you don't accept yourself for who you are. So you want to force me to do that. And then if we don't line up with your thought process in that, now we have issues. So what I'm saying is that like our grandmothers and great-grandmothers used to say, whatever you did to get that man, you need to keep doing it.
I agree, but I wouldn't say that. Yes, you are getting a little fat.
But don't ask the question.
But hold on.
Oh, fluffy is even worse. Fluffy. Don't say chunky.
But you got to go back to how you handle the conversation with sensitivity. Maybe you're not getting fat. No, you're not getting fat. Are you gaining a little weight? You have put on a little bit of weight. You get what I'm saying? But on the other end of that, though, and just being honest, that women, if you ask that question, no. But look, if you ask that question, you have to be ready for a real answer.
You
Because
do.
and
You
you
do.
have to understand that me as your spouse, I'm coming from a place of love. I'm not coming from a critical place
Yeah.
to try to demean you or belittle you.
Yeah.
I'm coming from a place of love so that you'll know exactly what you need to hear from me. I mean, what's your intent in asking me if you don't expect an answer? Which is what he's basically saying. So I get it from both perspectives.
Yeah.
My wife is not going to roll like that. If she comes and asks me, babe, do you think I'm fat? And if I turn around and say, not fat, but a little chunky, she'd be like, I didn't ask you if I
But
was
listen to
chunky.
the words you saying, bro.
She's gonna be like, I asked you if I was fat. That's not the question that I asked.
Chunky.
So now,
Chunky, fluffy,
okay,
fat.
fluffy
Come
or
on,
whatever.
man.
Okay.
Answer the question. My wife would be like, answer the question. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think that you can just ask another question or throw something else in there. So what do you say?
You say
You are beautiful just the way you are, honey.
You
I
say
love
that,
you.
but here's the other thing. You say fat. What fat do you mean? PHAT? Pretty hot and tempting.
I like that. I like that.
So I'm just saying, baby, you fine. You know, what do you mean? Are you fat? Really?
I just think ultimately too, like even from what you're saying, we know when we lose sight of our physical attraction. You know what I'm saying? And as a woman, we do like to look good for our mate, and I think that that's important too, that we don't lose it. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't want to lose yourself in a marriage and then lose your husband to somebody else. If you're, if it's the physical attraction, of course, for one, but you don't want to lose yourself in that process.
So I'm gonna ask this question. I'm sorry. Listen. So you all just playing devil's advocate like Reggie. So what if you all haven't picked up any weight and then you turn around and say, "Baby, am I fat?" Why are you really asking me that question?
I think that's just women, period.
But I'm just saying though. Why do you ask the question knowing you haven't changed?
How do you know that we don't know that we haven't changed? Because it could be that you're not complimenting me every day. It could be that you're not paying me enough attention. It could
So
be
redirecting.
that I'm not redirecting. You asked the question and I'm giving you the response. It could be that you haven't, noticed my hair changing. You didn't notice my hair done. You didn't notice my hair, my nails done.
But what if
You know,
we're
so-
noticing all those things?
What if you're not?
But what if we are though? But what if we're noticing those things? What if we're complimenting you? What if we're telling you how beautiful you are, and you're still asking that question? Does it go into that whole thing about Steph Curry's wife? Wanting a compliment from another man. I mean, does that?
Well, no, I don't feel like I need to be validated by another man, because ultimately I know that my husband do love and care about me. So I don't care about what nobody else has to say or think. So I think that if they are asking that question, if they know nothing has changed, it becomes an identity issue.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? That's
Thank
what
you.
ultimately I think that it is. And anytime you feel like you have to be dependent on what somebody else say about you, whether it's your husband or not, it is an identity crisis there, and some things you need to work out.
And sometimes insecurities rise up.
Yeah, it happens.
I do want to go on record to say this, is that I posed that one question, but I'm not having those issues in my bedroom. So I just want everybody to know we don't.
I don't think neither one.
Yeah, we don't have those issues in the bedroom. But I
The
do.
Bomber household is good.
Yeah, the Smith household is dope.
And the Wales household, we handle business.
We're rocking it. But I do want to say this. I know we're getting ready to close. That there are a lot of relationships that are suffering because of this very same question that I asked, because they may not want to hurt the person to say the wrong thing. So I'm going to say this: have the conversation. Sometimes the truth does hurt.
Yeah.
But be honest with them, as opposed to going out, stepping out and do something else, and fail to have that conversation to give that person the opportunity to make those changes in the bedroom or with themselves, for the confines of the relationship.
I agree.
And what I'm going to say too in my final thoughts is, I think that don't lose sight of what that spark was that got y'all together. I think, you had mentioned that earlier in the show, Reggie. I think making sure you have the date nights and that you compliment each other, that you are having that communication and that conversation on if I'm lacking anything, if I'm not lacking anything. I think that's going to always be important when you are talking about sex in marriage.
I agree. And again, like we stressed it all throughout the show, you got to have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone's having that conversation with you, you have to be on the end to where you're willingly receiving what they're saying. And you can't take it from a place of hurt, and you have to approach it from a place of love. So again, once again, it's another great topic. Thanks again for listening. All right, well, great conversation. Until next time, keep your head up.
Keep God first.
And keep it moving.